Hi guys, welcome to Cosi Talks Live. I am going to get set up here, give you guys a moment to jump on board. All right, it has been a hairy 2 weeks in the Cosi Talk studio. We're going to tell you a little bit about that. For the moment, I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to jump on board. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for doing so. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and if you have any questions. All right, going live on Instagram right about now. Okay, so yay, I am live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So cheers. And yeah, it's an iced decaf kind of night. So you know I've had a busy day. Hey there, Kim. Good evening. Thanks for joining in. Guys, as you do jump on board, you know the routine. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and more importantly, what's in your drink this evening. I actually have something good with me tonight. I've got a couple questions. It's been, like I said, a busy day here in the Veloso household and in the Cosi Talk studio. We're going to give you guys a chance. I know I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here. Going back to the replay, those of you who are watching the replay, please put replay in the comments section. And if you have any questions for me, go ahead and put it down for yourself for me at that time. All right, we got Tatiana on. Tatiana's on board. She says, glad you didn't float away. Me too. We got Mo on board. Good evening to you. We've got Tom from Canada. My Susan. There's my girl with Marshall. So give Marshall a big old kiss for me. Andre, nice. Ooh, Andre's got a Moscow Mule. We've never had that one on the show. That's a fancy one. Scott, good evening to you with his cold water and chili for dinner. Oh, chili. A bowl of chili would sound so good right about now. I just realized I haven't had dinner yet. Thank you, Kimberly. I really appreciate that. We got Kim on board from Indiana with her water. We got compadre. Yes, I am so glad we're okay too. And we've got Kathy on board, Stephen, and you're watching live. Yes, you are. We've got Dan coming in from Kansas City, Chuck coming in, and we got Emily from Central PA she always has like the fanciest drinks. Tonight she's got marshmallow ube macchiato from Dunkin'. I don't even know what that means. And we've got Andrea. Thank you. Good to be back. Has there ever been a Hurricane Cosi? No, because probably we cannot handle that. And my husband will be the first one to attest to it. We've got Matthew on board drinking Stella. All right, guys, we got a good group. It's so nice to see you guys. I've missed doing the show and being back in the regular routine. So cheers to all of you. Hey there, Chuck. I definitely want to say a huge thank you. So many of you have texted, emailed, called me, asking how we're doing. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Tampa Bay. Then, obviously we got hit with Hurricane Helene and a ton of flooding. I have several between family members and friends who completely lost their homes with Hurricane Helene. It was 4 to 5 feet of water in their homes, and it's incredible to see that. And then less than a week later, we get hit with Hurricane Milton. And I actually have a pretty impressive picture I'm going to show you guys of my yard of the damage. We were very, very, very blessed. So I can kind of check that bucket item off my list. I played chicken with a Cat 3 hurricane. Check. Done with that. And it was But again, unfortunately, with Hurricane Milton, we had our front door neighbor who lost their home, another neighbor on the other side of the street that 2 giant oaks fell on top of their home and half their home is exposed. But it's interesting and it's heartwarming to see our community coming together. I think our Florida governor has done an amazing job of bringing in resources and emergency, all the people coming in from all over the country to help put electricity back into the homes, to get these massive oak trees. Never have I appreciated more the engineering that has to go behind removing a massive oak tree from a home. Floridians, I know we're kind of the butt of a lot of jokes sometimes with Florida man and Florida woman, but I know this Florida woman is very grateful for her governor, very grateful for all the help that has been pouring in from the communities. And again, hoping that the folks in North Carolina are faring a little bit better. We've kind of been with our horse blinders on, just trying to help everybody in our neighborhoods just try to get out of their homes or anything like that. Some of my kids are going back to school tomorrow. Some of my kids, their schools still cannot be opened. So it's intense. It's intense, but we're alive and we are safe, and whatever damage was done, it can be repaired and it can be replaced. So thank you again. And tonight I get to do a show next week. No, Stephen, and I truly do appreciate everyone who sent me their prayers. Truly, truly. And if you see my backyard, it was these prayers that saved my home. No doubt about it in my mind. Thank you, David. Hey there, Dave. All my Daves are here tonight. So next week, and on top of all this, right, I am going to Poland, and I am so excited about this. I was invited to go be one of their speakers at their annual forum for amputee care, and I will be doing a 5 or 6 hour lecture. Y'all know I like to talk, but I think even that one's going to wear me out. And basically sharing how we do amputee care in the United States with the therapists from Poland. And I know we have some French therapists coming in and from different countries. So I am so excited. I've been doing a lot of work. It's a 300 slide PowerPoint. Yeesh, right? So excited. So excited. And I have patient videos and wonderful things there. So keep those prayers coming because I'm going to need them. And I am so excited to be able to have this opportunity to take this trip. Okay, then Gregory, there you are, Grasshopper. And we got Francis coming in on board. Thank you so much. Hey, Mark, me too. Okay, so here we go. We got the first question coming in that came in from Kim. She was asking how to adapt when one breaks an arm or a leg while being an amputee. And actually, in like the 6 years I've been doing the show, I don't think I've been asked this specific question. So Kim, props to you. Kim, I don't know if you're able to, if you're here tonight, if you kind of want to specify to me like what kind of a break, because it kind of does make a difference. If you are a leg amputee and you break the residual limb, lots of implications there. Obviously, it needs to be repaired in whatever way it has to, whether it's non-surgical or surgical, that needs to be repaired. If it's your other leg, okay, and this is probably where it's a little more relevant. If you are an amputee on one leg and you fracture a bone on the other leg, and the doctor tells you you have to be non-weight bearing, meaning you can't put any weight into that leg until the bone is healed. Unfortunately, that kind of takes you out of commission for walking. Just 2 weeks ago at the last show, I had someone asking me, is it okay if I'm a bilateral amputee just to walk on one leg using a walker? Okay. So in their case, it was because they were having their prosthesis repaired on one leg and they only had the other leg to use. And I said, no, absolutely not. Mainly because there's so much stress that is put onto one leg that if you just put all of your body weight onto an amputated side, just the one side, you're going to be asking for injuries. So in the event that you unfortunately fracture your sound limb, your good side, then yeah, you're going to have to probably use a wheelchair until that side heals. Okay, again, because even if you're a below the knee amputee, okay, hopping on that one leg using a walker is just going to be asking for a lot of trouble. And I know I've had that happen to a couple of patients throughout the years where they fractured or they had a stroke on the other side, and it put them out of commission for a while. Again, it's unfortunate, but you want to protect your body as much as possible. Okay. In regards to a fractured arm, if you're a lower leg amputee and you fracture an arm, obviously it's a huge inconvenience. It's more of an inconvenience if you have to use a walker to walk, and that's your way of getting around. But there are ways to getting around that. There's things called the arm walkers. So sometimes if a person has a fracture on their arm, they can actually use a little device for an arm walker, and that'll allow them to put weight into their humerus if it's a lower arm fracture. If it's a humeral fracture, you can't do that. Okay, but if you fractured your lower arm, the radius or the ulna, and you have to use a walker, then you can fix the walker with that little device and it'll allow you to put weight through the humerus part. Okay, hope that makes sense, Kim. I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit. All right, let's see what's going on. We got a lot of comments coming in. We got Jerry Ann from Arizona drinking white chocolate coffee. I'm glad you're fine. Thank you, Jerry Ann. I'm glad I'm fine too. Ashley, yes, I know. I'm so excited. And the best part is I get to bring my oldest daughter with me. She turns 18. Oh my gosh, my oldest daughter is turning 18. Wow. So this is going to be part of her birthday present. So it's a joy to be able to take one of my children with me whenever I have to do a trip somewhere. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Hey there, Helen. Glad you could join us. Kim just said, I broke my wrist in 3 places having balance issues. Okay, so Kim, that makes sense because now, Kim, if you don't mind letting me know, were you using a cane or a walker prior to this, or were you walking by yourself? Ashley's asking, do I know anything about the new Oser ProFlex Terra foot? Actually, I do. I was just having a conversation with someone who was an expert on that foot last week, and apparently it's quite the new hoopy scoopy foot that's out there. I've heard from a couple of people that it's really hot stuff. So I need to learn a little bit more about it. I know it's kind of intended for more active folks, like yourself, Ashley. And I'm starting to see it buzzing around in the, O&P circles a little bit more. So I am kind of looking forward to getting to know a little bit more about that foot. Let's see. Nick asks a very good question. What happens if you're a below the knee amputee and you need an ankle fusion on the other side? That can be tricky. Actually, I'm thinking back to one of my very first patients. This was back in the Jackson Memorial days. He was a sanitation worker. He was a garbage man, and he got crushed between 2 garbage trucks, and he became an above the knee amputee on one side, and they salvaged his limb on the other side. And it ended up not being, unfortunately, it wasn't a very good job with salvage. And one of the things he was thinking about was an ankle fusion. Ironically enough, his amputated side was doing great. He had a very simple setup back then. We didn't really have a lot of choices. He had a satch foot and kind of a door hinge knee, but he had a great socket and pretty decent PT, and he was walking pretty well with that side. Ankle fusions are tough. I'm not going to lie. So it basically means that you won't have any movement in your ankle, and you're going to have some gait deviation issues. Probably the most significant one is it's going to just take a lot more energy to walk because you're not able to utilize the muscles as well in your calf to power your gait through, and it may affect your balance a bit. It will affect your balance. Usually before an ankle fusion, I just recommend to people to try and do all the bracing that you possibly can through orthotics. I've seen some people be able to put off having an ankle replacement, which I definitely don't recommend. Put off having an ankle replacement by using some really, really sturdy orthotics. Something that can really brace together that ankle and hold it together. So if you have a good prosthetist and a good orthotist, kind of try all of that first. And that's what I can tell you. And definitely for sure, you will need physical therapy. You need to get physical therapy done afterwards to really learn the gait mechanics again. And then the other thing to think about is if you end up with an ankle fusion on your sound side, look at the foot on your amputated side and think about maybe switching to a foot that has a lot of movement in it. So to help compensate for the lack of movement that you will have in the other foot. So just off the top of my head, those are the things that I would consider. Jimmy says dry cell is awesome. Jimmy, you're jumping ahead of the game there. We're going to get there. Platform attachment. Thank you, Andrea. There's my OT. See, she knows all the names of all the equipment. I'm like that thingamajig that it's called a platform attachment. So if you happen to be have an arm fracture and you need to be able to use your walker, you ask for a platform attachment. Okay, so Kim, you broke your right hand and you used to use the cane with your right hand and you broke the right wrist. Okay, Andrea, you want to help me troubleshoot here? Can a platform attachment, that would be very clumsy. No, I don't think you can put a platform attachment onto a hemi walker. Kim, so a couple of things here. Your balance is off, obviously, because you can't use that cane. So a couple of things I'm just going to spitball here because I don't know you and I haven't seen you. I would ask, what is it that's preventing you from walking without a cane? Okay. Have you had physical therapy? Because my interest would be in seeing is if you could learn to walk without a cane, period. And that could be addressing any pelvic muscle weakness that you might have, addressing balance issues that you might have, those kind of things. So that's kind of like the first question that pops in my mind is, maybe you should think about going to physical therapy to see if they can work on your gait to get you independent. In the immediate sense, I would not want to put you on a walker because that kind of sets you back a little bit there, but at the same time, I want you to be safe. So if you're finding that you're not safe and you're at risk for falling, and we don't want that because you've already got a broken wrist, then maybe thinking about a walker with that platform attachment that I just mentioned. So you can put weight into it with your upper arm, your humerus, and be able to be steady when you're walking. Not ideal, but again, we want you to be safe. So Kim, I would encourage you go to the physical therapist, and this is where they can kind of help you get through these next few weeks until you're able to start putting weight into that wrist again. Tom says, I got the Oser Pro Flex Terra last week and I'm liking it so far. It's a pretty amazing foot. Okay. Let's see. Ashley asked, somebody else asked a question up here. Let me see if I can grab it. Ashley says, I'm 12 weeks out from a labral repair and putting my right below the knee on was interesting the first few weeks until I was clear to take my sling off for a little bit. Still can't use my crutches at night. Yeah. So, when you have a labral repair, you cannot put any weight into that for quite some time. And you have to figure out ways to do it. And I can only imagine, Ashley, it must be challenging to put the liner on as well. Like that's got to be a tough one there. Oh, so Jimmy's jumping ahead. Everybody's talking about the dry sol. Okay, let's go to the sweat question because that's what everybody's talking about the dry sol for. All right. So I had a question came in from Sean, and Sean asks, I'm having issues with my new vacuum system with sweating. What product do you recommend? Okay, we talk a lot about sweat on this show. I live in Florida. Hello. All right. First things first, though, if you have a vacuum system, elevated vacuum pump, shouldn't be a lot of sweat in that socket. There really shouldn't be any sweat in that socket. And here's why. Okay. So we've talked about suspension systems a lot on the show. Okay. So suspension is how your prosthesis is held onto your residual limb. And there's 40 million different ways to do suspension. Ask me how I know because they're all in my presentation for Poland, right? So you have your primary suspension and then secondary suspension. Okay. Primary suspension is things like pin lock, having a cuff or a strap that's attaching to your leg. Sometimes the shape of the socket can contribute to the suspension. Some of you may have suction suspension. Okay, so that creates a negative pressure and it kind of just sucks the air out, right? Or it doesn't suck the air out, you push the air out, right? So when you have suction suspension, that's those of you who have that little valve on the end of the socket that you push and it just as your limb goes into it and it pushes all the air out and it creates a negative pressure in your socket. Okay. So what the elevated vacuum pump does is it just takes that to a whole nother level. Okay. So if you have suction suspension, right, it's going to kind of match the atmospheric pressure. So it's only going to get a certain amount of negative pressure in there. When you put vacuum, then you really get a lot of negative pressure because that vacuum is sucking the air out of the socket and it's kind of making the tissues in your limb push up against the wall of the socket. Okay, so it's kind of taking all the space out and it's just pushing it out. Okay. So one of the benefits of having a vacuum suction is obviously you have this amazing suspension, right? It just like, gets your limb in there and doesn't let it move. And it also helps maintain your fluid volume in your limb. Okay. So I won't go into the boring physics of it all, but basically it's going to help keep the fluid in your limb stable. Okay. So it is a closed system. And those of you who have vacuum systems, you know that it has to be on really well and you cannot break the seal. Otherwise you lose the vacuum. Okay. And it does not serve its purpose. So Sean, I would ask, are you losing suction? Are you losing the vacuum? okay? And air is getting in, and that's why you're getting sweat. All right. If I have any prosthetists on board, by the way, who want to chime in on this one, feel free. Okay. So that's my first question. You should not be having sweat in your socket if you have a vacuum system that's working properly. Got it? Yes, capiche? With me so far? Yeah, Andrea, I've seen platform crutches on occasion, and I'm like, that's a hard no for me. um, okay, so Kim, you say you have a knee replacement on the right knee. I've worked with several patients who have had knee replacements on their sound limb, amputated side on the other limb, and they've been able to walk independently. So again, Kim, I would just encourage you, go back to see your physical therapist and see if there's something that they can do to help you improve and keep you strong while you're waiting for that wrist to heal. Pool therapy is wonderful. I love pool therapy. Okay. So if you have an elevated vacuum system and you're getting a lot of sweat in your socket, something's not right with the vacuum system. So whether it's because you are not putting it on properly or something with the mechanism isn't right, you need to go ask your prosthetist to help you troubleshoot this. With regards to sweat in general, okay, this is something that does need to be addressed. Now, why do we have sweat? It's what keeps us cool. It keeps our body temperature from overheating, and it also helps us get rid of all the toxins in our body. So we need sweat, right? When you have an amputation, you lose a big chunk of the surface area that your body sweats from, right? So the higher up your level of amputation, the more surface area that you've lost. So a lot of times with amputees, they'll start to sweat more to compensate. So you either sweat more from the residual limb or you sweat more in general. I've heard from both sides. And I've heard that over the years, this stabilizes for some folks. Some folks, they still continue to struggle with sweat and it becomes an issue. Okay. Now, why is sweat a problem for your socket? Obviously, the smell is not great, but then it can also create a lot of issues with the skin. It can cause a lot of shearing and friction to happen and chafing inside of that socket. It can lead to skin breaking down, blisters, wounds, rashes, some pretty nasty rashes that we can see with that, all sorts of problems. Not to mention that even like the fit of your socket. I've had people that they sweat so much that the socket rotates and they can't get good suspension with it. Okay. So, managing the sweat is something that, we need to learn how to do. So when I have somebody who comes in that is doing a lot of sweat, I talk to them about the hygiene. First of all, number one, the limb has to be showered at least once every 24 hours, shower or bath. Okay. The whole wiping down of the limb once every 24 hours, not enough. Okay. Because the bacteria and everything will accumulate there and then sweat will come up and then it'll accumulate more and it's a bit of a mess. So I tell my patients at least once every 24 hours, you got to get into the shower or bath and have water rinsing things off. Okay. Number two, the liner hygiene is also extremely important. Extremely important. Okay. So I tell my folks once every 24 hours, same thing. The liner has to be washed. And I tell my patients, take the liner into the shower with you. Okay. Turn it inside out, give it a good cleaning. And usually I tell people to use the same soap they use on their bodies. And as long as it's not reacting, you use it on the liner. And then you have to rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse some more. And I tell people rinse the liner with as hot water as you can tolerate. Don't burn yourself, right? Use your common sense. But really rinse it off. Okay. And I don't typically recommend antibacterial, just a normal soap that you use on yourself, use it on that liner. Okay. You got to get rid of all the gunk that's on that liner, okay, without damaging it. All right. So once that's done, everything has to be dry before you put it back on. Okay. Again, guys, if you're accumulating all of this stuff on your skin and your liner, you're going to sweat more. It's going to cause a lot of problems. Okay. During the day here in Florida, we are in the tropics. Technically, Tampa is right on the edge of that tropics line. And above me in northern Florida, it's considered subtropical. So it's still really humid and hot all year round. So my patients carry with them a little spray bottle that's 50-50, 50 alcohol, 50 water. And they'll carry extra socks and they'll carry a towel with them. And then throughout the day, they have to take off their prosthesis, clean their residual limb with the water and alcohol solution, clean the inside of their liner, wipe everything dry, and put it back on. That does not take the place of the shower. This is in addition to taking that shower once every 24 hours. This is just to kind of clean throughout the day. Some people have to do it once a day. Some people have to do it 2 times a day. Those of my guys that are working outside in the heat, they have to do it more often. Okay. And all of these little things combined help with managing the sweat. Okay. And again, my goal here is to keep the skin healthy. Has to happen, guys. Healthy skin means you're going to have a much better time being an amputee with your prosthesis on all day. Okay. I do love the Vital Fit skincare products. Let me write that down because I do have a discount code that you guys can use. And the code is Cosi10. They have the only skincare line that I am aware of, comprehensive line that is meant specifically for amputees wearing prosthetic devices. Okay, they have a fantastic cleanser that you can use on your skin and on the liner itself. It's very, very gentle and it gets the job done. They have a daytime moisturizer and nighttime moisturizer, which I think is wonderful. And then they have a liquid to powder lotion. And I like their liquid to powder lotion because it doesn't get gummy and disgusting like some of the ones from the drugstores do. Used to use those for years and they just get like really gross. The Vital Fit liquid to powder lotion, you can layer it on throughout the day as you need to, and it doesn't, like I said, get gunky and yuck. Okay, yeah, a lot of you guys use these products, so you guys can attest to that. Okay, and I find that when my patients are doing a skincare routine for their residual limb, things balance out a lot better with sweat. Okay, so ladies, a lot of us like to have our facial skincare routine, and I say to people, when you become an amputee, the skin on your limb becomes like the skin on your face. Okay, it's under a lot of duress and it has to be taken care of properly. Okay, so I won't lie, sometimes for my gentlemen patients, it's a little bit more of they've never had to really use skincare products before and having to figure this out. But it is something that needs to be learned. Okay. So those are the basic fundamentals of like sweat management. Okay. And it's something that I'm a real stickler for things that are for folks who have a little bit more problems. Okay. I don't recommend the antiperspirant as much as I used to. And that goes back to that dry sol that y'all were recommending. I used to, when I was first a therapist, just use the use the antiperspirant. The deodorant's not going to do anything. But what I found was a lot of my patients, they would put it on in the morning and it would slip off, like their liner would just slip off. The more I've learned, if you can balance your skin, that's going to help take care of it well too. But on occasion, I do have someone that really has a problem, or some of my folks who are runners, that they have to use something extra while they go for the run. So an antiperspirant can work great. You do need to put it on the night before and let it soak in, especially if you're putting it on a widespread area, because if not, that thing's going to create an oil slick and your liner's going to go slipping and sliding all over the place like a banana slide. Okay, no bueno. So we've got that. And then again, taking it to another level, if we still cannot get the sweat under control and it's interfering with function, I tell people and I send them to the dermatologist to talk about Botox. Yes, Botox. Okay. And there's a couple of you here that use Botox for this purpose to help paralyze the sweat glands. And I think it's pretty effective. I think maybe once or twice a year, folks would have to go to get this done. And in some cases, you can prove that it's a medical necessity and the insurance might possibly cover it. And then another solution, which again, if all conservative methods have failed, then osseointegration might actually be something the person might be thinking about. And I have had some people that they've turned to osseointegration because their sweat problems were not fixable and they could not function in their daily life. And then on top of that, they also had a short residual limb that was very difficult for suspension. So there is my spiel talk there on sweat. All right, Jimmy's asking, how come prosthetic companies have not come up with the idea or engineered the idea to put a refrigerator or freezer motor to keep our sockets cool from us, preventing us to sweat? Oh my gosh. Well, I can tell you a lot of menopausal ladies would be first in line to get one of those, Jimmy. Yeah. And again, it goes back to like, we need to sweat. You know, it's a good thing when our body sweats, because if not, we're going to have our core temperature and toxins, you know, getting built up, and that's no good. But yeah, it's something that I address a lot with my patients. I really do. And a lot of these solutions I just gave you guys, they work when you are being consistent with it. If you're consistent with your skincare, and if you're doing all the little things, it's not just taking the shower, it's not just cleaning the liner, it's not just using Vital Fit skin products, it's doing everything together. It's a skincare routine. And that's what it has to become, is a routine for you. This also will help prevent, again, just your overall skin health. You know, I have people who have eczema, people who have are prone to rashes, and just being on a skincare routine really can help stem some of these problems. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Jimmy. I'm with you. And it's something that I really feel for some of my guys who are outdoor workers and are amputees, especially here in Florida. It can be unbearable. It can be unbearable. Yeah. Um, okay, lots of comments that came in. Let me see if I can get these. Oh, so you need a knee replacement. Okay, thank you, Kim. That's kind of helping me put the pieces together in my brain. So, Kim, it might be advisable for you to maybe use a wheelchair on a temporary basis, again, mainly to keep yourself safe. And especially, you know, if you're looking at a knee replacement in your near future, that means that knee is probably not in great shape either. Again, still think you're going to need the physical therapy. And I think it's a good idea to just get going on that somehow and start getting yourself strong. If anything, it will help you recover from that knee replacement surgery faster. But I think your priority right now is to keep yourself safe and prevent yourself from falling. So if that means temporary using a wheelchair to get yourself around for maybe just the community or long distances, again, just to kind of protect the leg that needs that knee replacement and protect yourself from falling. Let's see. Oh gosh, I haven't even checked Instagram. Whoops. Okay, here Michelle Wood says, "How will I do physical therapy with bone-to-bone osteoarthritis on my left shoulder and an above right knee amputation?" Okay, so yes, Michelle, that you know puts a little bit of a complication on things. Again, there are things that can be done to work around that. One of my ladies that I'm thinking about right now, sweet lady, she was an above the knee amputee, and she needed a shoulder replacement because her arthritis had gotten that bad. So it was a challenge having to work with her, you know, in terms of when she needed a two-handed walker. So we worked really hard to get her as independent as possible with her gait to help take the pressure off the shoulder. So yes, if you're in a right knee amputee and you have to use a cane, for example, you would be using it on your left side. Okay, so I can appreciate that with your arthritis, that may not be possible. It's not completely unheard of to use a cane on the same side. It's not what you're supposed to do, but again, you got to kind of think outside the box sometimes. So, Michelle, in your case, I would say, you know, this is where you want to work closely with your physical therapist and just see what they can do. And the other thing that they can be doing is physical therapy on that shoulder, on your left shoulder. The stronger your muscles are around a joint, the better that those muscles can help support the arthritis. Obviously, when you've got it to the severity that you need a replacement of the joint or something like that, may not be able to help much with the pain, but with regards to the strength, you always want to keep working on that. Okay. So Michelle, in your case, I would definitely encourage you, work closely with your physical therapist and help them get you strong with your legs and your residual limb so that ideally you can become an independent ambulator if that's possible. Okay. And yes, it will take time, but yes, it is possible. It is possible. Can I talk about, okay, so Paola is asking me if I can talk about the patella and the knee disarticulation. Okay, so with a knee disarticulation, where's Bob? Come here, Bob. Guys, for those of you who've never been to the show, this is Bob. He is my sometimes reluctant and always snarky patient model. Okay, so with a knee disarticulation, the leg is removed from the knee below, but this part of the femur, the condyles, are left intact, okay? The patella, otherwise known as your kneecap, it just depends on the surgeon. Some surgeons will remove the kneecap altogether, and then they will take the muscles that normally go over the kneecap and reattach them on the inside of the femur bone right into here. Some of them will leave the kneecap on, the patellar on. My understanding from the literature that I've been reading is that it's better to actually take the patella off. And the reason is because it tends to sometimes travel. The patella will sometimes kind of move out of place and cause problems. Or when people are weight bearing into that prosthesis, because you can do that with a knee disarticulation, the bone on bone with the patella tends to be very uncomfortable. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, my patients who are knee disarticulation patients, they didn't have a patella. They had their patellas removed. So yeah, that was actually something I recently just kind of looked at the literature to see what the literature was saying. So yeah, the patella, most cases, is removed. So Paola, I'd be curious to ask you, are you a knee disarticulation amputee yourself? And do you have a patella, or was your patella removed? I'd love to just kind of know what prompted you to ask that question. It's a very good question. I'm doing great, Carolyn. Thank you for joining on board. Oh, it's so nice to see you. Sorry, guys, I'm kind of flipping through the Instagram because I was missing a couple of questions there. So, guys, I hope if you're on, yes, it moves. Okay, Paola, thank you for saying that. So, again, in terms of what can be done, this would be interesting. I'm not sure, but this is something I'm just kind of throwing out there. If you were to strengthen your quads and your hamstrings, okay, so in the anatomy lesson here, right, your quads are that big beefy muscle in the front of your thigh, right? And it comes down to the front of your thigh, and then it goes over your patella with a nice big thick tendon, and it attaches down here, right? So like I said, if your surgeon left your patella in, they probably took that patellar tendon and then connected it somewhere here in the back or to another muscle, okay? So your quad muscle is essentially still intact, which means it can be strengthened quite nicely, okay? Maybe not to the extent that it was before, but you can strengthen it. So I would wonder if in strengthening it, you can kind of help stabilize that patella just a little bit, right? So a lot of times when people with full legs, like people who are not amputees, when they have instability in their patella, we got to strengthen it, right? Because the muscles have to hold that little bone in place prevent it from tracking around and going all over the place. So I would, nudge your physical therapist and say, hey, can we do anything about strengthening this? The other part to consider is, talking to your prosthetist. And if it's bothering you within that socket, asking what can be done to modify the socket. Okay. And then if you're having no resolution to this problem and it's affecting your ability to walk and function during the day, and you've tried all these different methods and nothing is working, then I would say, go have a conversation with your orthopedic surgeon and see if they would consider taking out your patella. Again, that's a very extreme case, obviously, that involves a surgery and recovery process. You want to kind of save that for the end, hopefully not have to resort to that. But that is something that you could potentially ask your surgeon about and just see what your options are. Yes, Paula, that definitely is what makes the end of the limb more bulbous. You hit the nail on the head right there with it. So again, the end of this part right here, the bulbous part, are your femoral condyles right here and right here. And Bob actually has some really nice slim looking ones, but they're actually pretty more bulbous. And the same thing for people who have Symes amputations where they just have their foot removed. The ankle bones, known as the malleoli, those are also very bulbous, okay? So the cool thing about being a knee disarticulation is you have a nice long lever arm and you can stabilize yourself down here at the end and you get some really great function as a knee disarticulation. To me, I almost treat my knee disarticulation patients like below the knee patients because they can function just really nicely, right? But it can make for a tricky fit with the femoral condyles. Sometimes the surgeons will kind of shave that down just a little bit, I don't want to know about the research. I don't know about the literature that, I don't know, like, that's something I have to learn more about myself. Like, does that potentially down the line stimulate bone spurs to occur? I don't know. I'm just kind of talking out loud right now. But yes, that's what it is. And a lot of times with the prosthetist, there are different ways to manage prosthetic fit to help you get into that socket. And there's a lot of tricks that they can do for that. Okay, back here. Let's see. Okay, Ashley with her other random question. I love your random questions, Ashley. Ooh, I like this question. Ashley says, how come every few months I tend to walk on the outside of my foot? Is it because I'm so active or because I change shoes every 3 to 4 months at the suggestion of my PMR? So walking on the outside of your foot is a classic alignment. Oh man, I wish I had. We're going to use this one tonight. I haven't used this one in a long time. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you a quick story about this leg. It is just the most amazing story. And those of you who've already heard the story, just bear with me for a second. I got a chance to go to Guatemala twice, first time in the summer of 2022 and just recently this past summer to go work at the Range of Motion Project Clinic. And they provide amputee care to the amputees of Guatemala and Central America. So I got to go there and I got to volunteer. It was really, really awesome. So when I went in 2022, a gentleman named Señor Caño came to see me. He had traveled 14 hours to get to the clinic in Guatemala. And he was probably in his early 60s, and he had been an amputee for 25 years. And he was a worker in the fields. He lost his limb while I think it was a bad accident in the fields, and he made himself this prosthesis. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Look at that. Like the suspension system with the thigh cuff, this is what I was talking about. And he walked in this for 25 years. He ran with it. Okay. Anyways, so this is one of my favorite little, right? And it's a left side. So with regards to Ashley saying that she's walking on the outside of her foot, that is kind of a common gait deviation, also known as a limp, right? A different kind of limp that can happen when you're a below the knee amputee. So a couple of causes for that. First, for you, Ashley, I'm willing to bet it's because your shoes are wearing out. So yes, when your shoe wears out, and you can just look at the bottom of your shoe and see where you've been wearing it out, okay? You may have a tendency to lean out, or you may have a tendency to lean in, depending on what your alignment looks like. Hey, Bob, quick wet and fresh with me back there. Okay, so the other reason you might be leaning out is also your alignment. So this particular leg doesn't have a pylon, that metal rod that attaches from your socket to your foot. Okay, but if you see that you're leaning out to the side like this, leaning, as we would say, leaning laterally, okay, that means that your alignment is off. Okay, it could mean that your foot is set too far in. Okay, so these are just little adjustments and little things that over the course of time might need to be realigned and readjusted, especially if you're someone as active as Ashley, okay? Ashley, again, I'm willing to bet that it's your shoes, and the easiest way to test it is to put on a new pair of shoes. And if you see that you go back to walking normally, mystery solved. But if you put on a new pair of shoes and you see that you're still having a tendency to walk on the outside part of your shoe or the inside part of your shoe, then it's time to give your prosthetist a call and have them check that alignment. Love it. Okay. Oh, Matthew says the soleus is definitely an upgrade from the Veriflex. Soleus is my second foot. I love soleus. Soleus is one of like my top 5 recommendations for prosthetic feet when people ask me for like good active foot. All right, let me just check over here on Instagram. So far, so good there. Okay. Ashley says, my other random question, every couple of months I have to have adjustments to my foot because I start walking on the outside. We just covered that one. Yep. Okay, never mind. I'm rereading the same question. Ooh, Cosi needs to go take a nap and eat dinner. All right, let's keep going through here. I just want to make sure I covered all the questions that came in. Okay, here's one other question that came in from Kristen. She says, hello, I've been watching your videos, especially regarding osseointegration surgery. after chatting with one of the OI, somebody who's had OI, can you direct or help me find which procedure seems to be better as far as infection rates and success between the PressFit and the Oprah systems? This is a very heavy question, okay, but I'm going to try my best to answer it as best as I can. Okay, quick recap. I've done a ton of videos on osseointegration, guys. Integrum, they are the makers of the Oprah system for osseointegration. They are a sponsor of my show. And I've had the founder on my show as well. And you guys can go to YouTube and listen to all the osseointegration videos, okay? So osseointegration basically means the bone fusing to bone fusing to metal, okay? So what happens with osseointegration, and I actually have an implant that they sent me. I'm kind of excited about this. I don't know if I'm gonna give this back. Sorry, Jamie. So basically what they do is they take this implant and they put it into the middle of the femur. So they put it into the bone of the femur, okay, in the first surgery, and then they close everything up. In the second surgery, they make a little opening in the skin, and then this part will be sticking out, this part right here, okay? And then they have another device and the prosthesis attaches directly to it. So it basically means that as an amputee, you do not have to use a socket. Okay, so the prosthesis will attach directly to the implant. Okay, currently there are several different methods in the world of osseointegration. Up to date, there's been 17 different kinds of implants developed. Not all of them are being used. Some of them never made it to market. Okay, but at least 17 attempts have been made. Okay, the original one is called the screw fit. That's the Oprah. That's this one. And you can see why, let me put it right. You can see why it's called screw fit because it looks like a screw. You see those ridges right there? Okay, so you can see why they call it screw fit. The other big one out there that you hear a lot about is the press fit. Okay, I don't have a press fit implant because I don't happen to have a partnership with any of the press fit companies. Okay, press fit, and now a third one is you're going to start hearing about is called the compress. But we're going to keep it simple tonight, and we're going to keep it to the screw fit and the press fit. And I actually have a video coming out very soon that really explains the differences between the two. Okay, the only one FDA approved in the United States right now is the screw fit. Okay, some folks here in the United States are getting the press fit done. How is that happening? Because the FDA gives, it's called special, oh gosh, I always get the name of it wrong, device exemption. Basically, some of the clinics will have special permission to do a certain number of press fit surgeries per year. Okay, so that's why you're starting to see some press fit being done in the United States. And there's a lot of research studies going on. Okay. With regards to what does the literature say, I did a huge show on this 3 weeks ago, and I would encourage you to go back and watch that show. It's with Dr. Joseph Shu. If we had to talk about the top 10 surgeons, I would say in the world for osseointegration, he would be in that conversation and on that list, along with Dr. Brandemark and Dr. Jason Souza, who have all three been on my show. Okay. So the literature, the most literature we have is on the screw fit. Why? Because it's been around the longest. So the osseointegration technology has been around since the 1960s, but the osseointegration for amputees has been around since 1990, and it's been the screw fit. So we have the most literature on this because it's just been around longer, okay? When I was looking up literature with the infection rates and the outcomes, there's not a lot of literature to help differentiate between the two. Okay, a lot of the literature that I'm looking up that talks about infection rates and things like that, they kind of lump together a lot. They lump together screw fit and press fit. Okay, now what I was able to find was literature that was only done exclusively on screw fit. Okay, so we do have literature about the infection rates and things like that. And we talked a lot about it, like I said, a couple of weeks ago on that show with Dr. Shu, okay? And y'all know I don't sugarcoat things on the show. So the basic gist of it is that infection is a concern, okay? And it is something that has to be taken into account when making the decision to get osseointegration done, okay? And I'm giving you very, very general statistics on infection. This is something that you really need to discuss with a surgeon like Dr. Shu, okay, who has done this surgery a lot. So the basic rule is, or the basic what the literature is showing is that once every 2 years, you can expect to get a superficial infection. What does that mean? It's an infection that only affects the top layer of your skin. It's an infection that can be cleared with oral antibiotic. So the doctor writes you a prescription, you take the antibiotic for 7 to 10 days, and the infection clears up. Okay, those are the superficial infections. For deep infections, these are infections that go all the way down to the bone, that go into the implant, that can be a reason for having them to extract the implant. Those are much more serious infections, and there's about a 10% chance, approximately a 10% chance. And again, Dr. Shu explains it so much better on the previous shows. Okay, so the way he tells people is, think about it, out of 10 people, one person will develop a deep infection. Okay, now, another thing that Dr. Shu brought up on the show, that's a lot of shoes. There are entities out there that are claiming that their infection rates are better. Okay, and this was Dr. Shu's words. He goes, if people out there are saying that their infection rates are better, they're probably not telling the truth. Okay, and that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers when I say that. But I think it's important to say that, because if you go to a surgeon and they tell you, well, my infection rates are better than the average, I'd be a little concerned. Okay, infection happens sometimes. It happens even with the best of surgeons. Dr. Shu has had patients with infections, and he openly admits it. So you need to have a doctor that is willing, a surgeon, not only who is experienced in doing the surgery, but that also acknowledges the risks behind the surgeries and has a plan for if the worst happens. Okay? And again, I'm speaking to you not only because I've been working with some of these surgeons for the past 2 years and learning all this, I have seen a lot of patients that they went and they had osseointegration done. They got an infection and they were not able to get the follow-up care from their surgeons. And it's happened here in the US and it's happened outside the US. And I've seen a lot of blow-ups on Facebook over this. Okay? So if osseointegration is something that you are taking into consideration, and I like it, guys, I like the idea of osseointegration. I think there's some amazing people who would benefit from this surgery, and I've seen it change people's lives. Okay? But you have to do it with a responsible attitude. You have to do it with a surgeon who has a team and a plan. Okay? They need to have a team and a plan. They need to have the nurses, the therapists, everybody in that team, and the plan of what happens in the worst case scenario. What happens if I develop a deep infection? What happens if I develop a deep infection 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Okay, that surgeon needs to have a plan for you, and they need to be open about what that plan will be, as well as what is the plan after surgery? What support will you be providing me to recover from this surgery? Because it is an intense surgery to recover from. The benefits are amazing, but you have to go through that recovery and rehabilitation process. So I know I got all serious with you guys down here, but I think I've seen just lately a lot of stuff on Facebook that makes me very cringy, and it makes me upset to see some of the things that I'm seeing on these Facebook support groups and the lack of information and the misinformation I'm seeing. Okay. If you go to the Integrum website, you'll find a list of surgeons that have been trained. Okay. And I would start there. And I'm happy to give you guys references. Several of you have approached me in the past of who are the surgeons that I would recommend for osseointegration here in the United States. I can tell you right now, 4 of them, just off the top of my head, that I would say go to these guys. Okay. So there's my soapbox on osseointegration. And again, I do want to say thank you to Integrum, because they have been such an amazing support in helping educate many of you as my viewers with allowing me to do these shows. They have been incredibly supportive of my talking about both press fit and the screw fit. We even had a surgeon on the show, Dr. David Dodery, that he trained under both methods. And we had him on the show to talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of both of them. Okay. So big thanks to them. All right. Jimmy says, I've been an amputee for 43 years since the age of 3. From a lawnmower accident, age 15, went to below the knee and above the knee at age 20 from many sports I did, golf course work for 22 years. I'm the only amputee golfer from Oklahoma to be a part of the Southwest Amputee Golf Association and Veterans Golf Association. That's pretty kind of awesome, Jimmy. That's props to you, man. That's kind of cool. Oh gosh, I was just thinking about the guy in our community. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot his name. He's part of the Professional Adaptive Golf Association. Oh, he's going to get mad at me if I tell him I forgot his name. Tatiana, the Vital Fit skincare website, I believe it's, guys, can somebody post that website, vitalfitsr.com? I want to say it's that one. Try that one out. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get caught up on some of these comments. Woohoo. And guys, by the way, if I miss your question tonight, I do apologize. I'm trying to skim through these comments. If I miss your question, send an email to me, cosi@cositalks.com, and you can send me your email question there. You can also sign up for my texting service. And here's the number for that. And you can text me your questions and you'll also get links from me when I go live. I promise I don't spam. You just text Cosi Talks, all caps, one word, to that number and you can be a part of that. So if I missed your question tonight, I do apologize. But you can also send it back to me. All right, here we go. Let me just see if I can, there was one question here I was trying to go for. There's the Vital Fit School. Okay. Hey, Chris from Iowa. Van Gregory says a robotic prosthetic foot where the toes moved would be so helpful with bouldering, rock climbing. Actually, there does exist one, Van Gregory. I think, oh gosh, do not quote me on this because if I get this wrong, I'll be embarrassed. I think it's the Meridian. I think the foot is called the Meridian. It's actually like a power or bionic foot, meaning it actually does movement. It's not movement that the amputee has to create in the foot. But the thing is with like these robotic foots, I've actually never had a patient with a Meridian, so I'm not really sure, like, is it good? Is it not good? You know, but I can tell you this, it's going to be heavier and it's going to require a lot more maintenance. And I don't think you'd be able to take it rock climbing. Usually the higher level of technology and computer components, the less impact that you can do with it. Hey there, Carl, coming in from Hong Kong, man, or Taiwan. You're from Taiwan. Oh, I thought you were in Hong Kong. Okay, you're in Taiwan. Awesome. Thanks for coming in and joining us. Let's see. John asks, what is the correct way to don an above the knee suction socket? I unscrew the bolt entirely to see how far my residual limb is. Then I put the bolt back on and pump some air. Is that okay to do it that way? Absolutely. That's kind of how you're supposed to do it. So yeah, you put your limb in, and sometimes some people like to put on a little bit of, I call it germy gel, the alcohol gel. And sometimes they'll put a little bit of it on because that just kind of helps slip down a little bit easier. And then you want to kind of test through the valve, just kind of stick your finger in there and you should be able to feel your residual limb, but it shouldn't be popping out. If it's popping out, it means you're going in too far and you probably need to add a sock. And then you put the valve in and then push out any air that's left in there and with weight in there, and that's it. Then there you go. Creates a nice closed system. So Tatiana's asking how suggestions for Vital Fit product for grafted skin. I need to find a way to toughen the skin up. Maybe OI is a good option. Okay, so with regards to OI, right now in the United States is only approved for above the knee amputees. Again, I have seen it done in below the knee amputees, and that's a conversation we can have a little bit later. Tatiana, if you want to reach out to me later on. In the below the knee amputees, we're not seeing it yet approved in the United States. Globally, yes, it is approved. With regards to burn skin and grafted skin, it is always going to be a little more sensitive. And the reason for that is because it's not going to produce its own oils and its own sweat. So when you have a graft, whether it's due to burns or whatever, it basically means that the epidermis and the dermis, those layers of skin, were removed. And what was removed with it is the sweat glands and the oil glands. Okay, so people who have grafted skin, they don't sweat from that area of skin. They don't have oil production. And some of you who have problems with sweat, you're like, oh, that must be nice. It's like, no, actually, it's not good, because we need that sweat and we need those oils to kind of coat our skin and keep it nice and supple. So with grafted skin, it is going to be more prone to tearing and blistering. Okay. And I've had several patients. I used to work in the burn trauma center. So usually the first thing I recommend right off the bat is that they get a polyurethane liner, a custom liner, especially if the grafts are covering the entire residual limb. The polyurethane liner, I used to have one here. Is this it? I don't think this is a polyurethane liner. No, this is not a polyurethane liner. This is just a silicone. There's a gel liner. Okay, never mind. So polyurethane liners, you're not going to, it's basically a custom made liner. It's not as flexible. It's just a little more sturdy. And what it does is it shuttles away pressure from the areas that need protection. Okay. So in some of the grafted people that I've had, this has been a really nice solution for it. When it comes to wearing, the way to toughen up your skin is to be very slow and meticulous with the wearing schedule. Okay. So when you receive that prosthesis for the first time, you may only be able to wear it for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes from the time that you put the liner on. Okay. So the time it takes you to put the leg on, that's when the 5 minutes begins, because you're putting something onto the skin. Okay. And you may only be able to do standing exercises and weight shifting, and then have to sit back down, take everything off, and let the skin rest. Okay, and doing very slow wearing schedule and very slowly increasing that day by day. And again, it will be very frustrating, because as an amputee, you might be progressing quickly with your strength, but your skin is what's going to be holding you back. But I have worked very carefully with some burn patients and been able to get them acclimated to wearing a prosthesis, but it takes time. So those two things right off the bat: polyurethane custom made liner and a very, very conservative wearing schedule. Okay. Is OI an option? Yes, absolutely. And it is one of the reasons that people meet the criteria for OI, is with grafted skin that cannot tolerate wearing a socket. But I typically recommend to people, try to wear the socket first. Just try it out and see if you can make it work. Especially as a below the knee amputee. So yes, globally, we do see osseointegration for below the knee. Here in the United States, you might see an occasional one, but it's usually, again, through that special permission that the FDA gives. And I'm totally brain farting right now. Humanitarian device exemption. Oh, that's what it's called. Golly. I know, that door slam. Yeah, there's a lot of experts on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. Sylvia, glad to see you here. Thank you for joining in. Your new amputee bilateral BK in July. So Sylvia, I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist. And if you have any questions, don't be shy and put them into the comment section. Thank you, Ben Gregory. Okay, so Francis asks, did you say that when we clean our liners not to use antibacterial soap? That's the only thing I use, and I clean my liner with it. Here are my thoughts on antibacterial soap. I think we use a little too much antibacterial in our culture in general. I remember when Germy gels, the hand sanitizer, started coming out. It was right around the time I started practicing as a physical therapist. So about 25 years ago, when I started working, I remember the infectious disease doctor saying, this is ridiculous. We don't need this much antibacterial. We're killing off the good flora on our skin. And we, when COVID happened, I think one of the funny memes I heard was, well, now that everybody knows how to wash their hands properly, right? So one thing we learned with COVID-19 is how the efficacy of washing our hands properly and how that can prevent the spread of disease and bacteria. Okay. So in general, I tell my patients don't use antibacterial because it's overkill. It's like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. And again, you're drying out your skin a lot more. If you dry out your skin, then your skin's going to start to overproduce sweat and oil production. Okay. We want to treat our skin nicely. Now, are there exceptions to this rule? Yeah. I think some people who have a history of MRSA, some people who have a history of having just lots of infections and prone to infections, then they might need to upgrade to an antibacterial. I can tell you what I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of Hibiclens, and I know that's become a very popular thing to use, and I will continue to speak out against that one. That's the stuff that they use in the OR when they are surgically prepping your skin, and they really need to kill every bacteria on there to prevent massive infection. I see people using it on their skin on a regular basis, and I'm sorry, I very much disagree with that. I think you're stripping your skin and you're killing off the good stuff. And then if, God forbid, you do have an infection, you're not going to have anything stronger to kill it with. Okay. So again, the only times I go against that rule of antibacterial is if your dermatologist is recommending it because perhaps you have a history with MRSA or there's something else going on where you need to use the antibacterial. But again, the majority of my patients, when it comes to cleaning their skin and cleaning their liners, soap and hot water, not hot water to burn yourself, but just hot water, and that will clear a lot of all the bacteria that needs to be cleared out. And this is something, I kind of really feel strongly about that. But again, this is your leg, this is your skin. I have some people that say I use antibacterial all the time. It's what helps me control the odor. It's what helps me control everything. And then I'm okay with it. Then, you got to do what works for you. But yeah, my recommendation is you don't need the antibacterial. And it's kind of funny. I have a cabinet in my house. I kid you not, there's about 20 bottles of alcohol gel from all the times that I don't even know how it makes it into my house. But I have like 20 bottles of alcohol gel. Some of them are years old. I mean, that's how often we use alcohol gel in my house. We use it, I think the only time I use it is when I'm literally on an airplane and I can't get to the airplane bathroom to wash my hands properly. Then I'll use the Germy gel. Okay. All the studies will show you guys, just the friction from washing your hands and using soap and water is more efficient than that stuff. Now, some of you are going to say, well, Cosi, you were talking about earlier how to use the alcohol and water and the spray bottle for daytime use. And I go, yes, those are for my people that are Floridians who are sweating like gangbusters throughout their day. And they have to take off their leg during the day and clean themselves during the day. And even then it's 50-50, 50 water, 50 alcohol. So that's one of my soapboxes, pun intended. Oh, that's bad. That was bad, guys. Sorry. Do I use BOA for knee disarticulation? Are you talking about the BOA? Yes. Hang on. Please hold, Paola. Okay. Yes, I do. Here we go. So going back to our knee disarticulation and our signs amputations with the foot disarticulation, when they have the bulbous ends, so the ends are a little bit bigger and it's kind of hard to shove the residual limb into that socket. Do I recommend the use of a BOA dial? Yes, but what I'm actually recommending is the use of an adjustable socket. So I think that's what you were trying to tell me, Paola. So once upon a time, the Click Medical people, they made their adjustable systems using a BOA dial, and some of you have that system still, and it works great. So you click it in, you twist, and it tightens up the socket with the different panels. Now they have what's called a click reel, and I need to dig it up because I do have a sample of that. So the click reel allows you to adjust it to tighten and adjust it to loosen it. You don't have to pull the whole thing out to get it to loosen. And you can do what are called micro adjustments. Y'all know I love myself a good click medical socket. So yes, one of the indications for that is definitely somebody who has a bulbous end on their limb, because it allows you to get in without having to traumatize your limb. And then you can tighten up the socket to get a really nice snug fit. So yes, Paola, my personal favorite is the Click Medical, and I'll type that in. Click Medical RevoFit Adjustable Socket System. There we go. There you have it, Paola. So hopefully you're still there and you heard this. Okay. Okay, guys, it's late. I haven't had dinner. I'm going to go have some dinner and then I'm going to go to bed. I will be preparing for Poland for this next week, and I hope to give you guys a sneak peek of my travels. I'm getting to go to Krakow, which is, to me, just, I've been there once before, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. So I'm really looking forward to going there again. And sharing that with you guys and letting you know how they do things over there in Poland. All right, guys, as always, thank you again for all of your support during this time, during these hurricanes. Keep sending support, keep checking in on your loved ones and friends that are living in the southeastern part of the United States, because the recovery process it's pretty long. So thank you again, and thank you for the prayers. I will definitely continue asking and accepting those prayers. So guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. Hopefully I will be seeing you next week. Same bat channel, but it's going to be a different bat time because I'm going to be in a different time zone. All right, guys.